Hello everyone. Today we'll discuss a persistent yet fascinating myth. Africa is a vast continent, and it's important to first define what we mean by Africa in our topic. It's common to separate North Africa from Sub-Saharan Africa. North Africa has seen civilizations we've all heard of, such as ancient Egypt and Carthage, to name just a few. We will focus on Sub-Saharan Africa, as it is often wrongly perceived as lacking any indigenous civilization. So we will proceed through three main points that are displayed on the screen and that you can follow throughout the episode. This way, you won't lose track. Let's begin with West Sub-Saharan Africa. In the same way that the Mediterranean was the cradle of many of our modern civilizations, the Sahel, a semi-arid region between the Sahara and the tropical Savannah, was the cradle of many West African civilizations. Let's add to that the fact that the Sahel was, quote-unquote, a highway of cultural influence and goods. West Africa was one of its logical commercial crossroads. There are striking examples to show us this. The Empire of Ghana, a noteworthy first example, dominated the region from the 8th to 11th century AD. This empire based an important part of its power on the gold trade between the African coast and the Sahara. This gold often ended its journey in the markets of the Mediterranean. Sadly, the gold trade became challenging in the 11th century AD, marking the end of its prosperous era, due to extraction issues and raiders targeting the caravans. But it's not over, Ba. No, it's not over. The Ghana Empire will be succeeded, founded on the same sources of power, by an even more powerful entity, the Mali Empire. Presenting the Mali Empire in depth would take several episodes. That's why we'll just focus on the aspects that are a real feast for the eyes. The Mali Empire, which existed from the 13th to the 16th century AD, it was a crossroads for caravans carrying highly valuable commodities like gold, copper, spices, and salt, which were used to preserve food. In short, the empire was extremely wealthy. The story of Mansa Musa, its emperor, shows us that. A devout Muslim, he decided to make a pilgrimage to Mecca. So he packed his bags, ordered thousands of people to accompany him, and caused massive inflation during his passage through Egypt because of all the money he spent there. And yes, the Emiratis and other Saudis we know today were not yet the kings of wealth at that time. Well, not wealth, I mean money, you know. Finally, the Mali Empire, known at its peak in 1350, had nearly 20 million inhabitants. Let's move on to East Africa. Ethiopia is one of the oldest countries in Africa, and it's one of the few that managed to escape colonization. Fascist Italy's 1935 invasion of the country failed. Although they won the Second Italo-Ethiopian War, the Italians never managed to conquer the entire Ethiopian Empire. The conquered territories remained unoccupied due to fierce local resistance. But let's go back in history. The Kingdom of Aksum, ancestor of the country, was situated at the intersection of trade routes linking India and the Mediterranean. This story will even show us that Europeans are not the only ones who know how to handle imperialism. At its peak, the Empire of Aksum, formerly a kingdom, controlled northern Ethiopia, Eritrea, northeastern Sudan, Djibouti, and the Nashran Oasis territory directly or through agreements, according to recent theories, covering both part of Yemen and part of what is now southern Saudi Arabia. Aksum eventually declined and faded away, but it was replaced by the Ethiopian Empire, which lasted from 1270 to 1974, ruled by a single dynasty, the Solomonids, throughout the entire period. Southern Africa boasted great empires and kingdoms, such as the Monomotapa Empire, also known as the Empire of Great Zimbabwe, the Kingdom of Congo, and the Sultanate of Kilwa. The list is long, but we'll have to settle for one striking example, that of the Zulus. The Zulus, originally one of many tribes, lived in present-day South Africa. That was the case until 1816, when a certain Shaka came to lead them. With great ambitions and innovative ideas, he aimed to control the region. He formed a professional army, mandated military service for his subjects, and transformed military strategy. His only real so-called defeat would be being assassinated in 1828 by his half-brothers. Thank you, family. Shaka displayed his leadership skills by organizing competitions and enforcing the Zulu language on the conquered populace. All of this while practicing eugenics. If we wanted to simplify this term, we could say that eugenics basically consists of getting rid of members of the community who do not fit the desired characteristics or who are too weak. Unfortunately for them, 50 years later, they fall under the blows of the great world power of the late 19th century Great Britain. I hope that the overview we shared with you today will give you a new perspective on the history of pre-colonial Africa. Yes, I did say we, and I'm not referring to myself in the third person. It's simply in reference to the fact that this episode was co-written by Jean-Baptiste and myself. A big thank you to him for his work and research. Once again, Litchi's graphic talent has been invaluable. Visit his DeviantArt page, link in the description. D-Mystif recently surpassed 100 subscribers, the first symbolic milestone. This achievement is thanks to you, the viewers of the channel's episodes. If you liked this video, give it a thumbs up. I also invite you to connect with me on Facebook, Google+, and Twitter to further engage, or if you simply want to show me your very valuable support. Thanks for watching, D-Mystif. See you soon. Subtitling 501.